This is Judge Joe Brown, and you're watching We All Be News TV, the
News-free Dixie.
news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Man, that's something, man.
And then see some of what we have wrong with our leadership. There was this guy that I owed a behind whipping to, but he died, so he escapes that. He decided that he was going to be the BSU president for his resume. He was he was a transfer student. So he calls a meeting of all of these freshmen to say it's a BSU meeting and have elections, so they elect him as president of the BSU. The election wasn't supposed to be for another 4 months. But anyway, he becomes BSU president, which would look good on his future resume, and he used that to the effect. But he was a punk. So Ron Karinga's boys were out there trying to gangsterize everybody on the UCLA campus so they could get a black studies program that they controlled and convinced the faculty that they represented the black students. So something was going on, and there was a demonstration we were involved in. And they had the sheriff's department, the highway patrol, LAPD, the campus cops, all this other stuff. And he was a BSU chairman, so we're trying to get this fool to go. And he says, brothers, I appreciate what all of you have done for me and the sacrifices you have made. However, I'm in a position where I can't afford to jeopardize my career, so you'll have to go on without me, but I'll be there in spirit. Grab that fool. So we grabbed him and drug him there, and he was shaking like a leaf. And I'll never forget this. He had on some light gray pants, and he pissed on himself. He had a dark stain of urine all down his left leg and a puddle of piss around his left foot. And he almost collapsed, but we held his butt there. He was so scared. See, that's what's wrong with a lot of our leadership now. He became a so-called black leader, and they're just cowards. But they talk a big game, a good game.
Wow. Well,
so it's interesting. I was a classmate with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Big Lou Alcindor, the basketball player who wound up eventually playing center for the Lakers. Had that sky hook because they outlawed dunking because of him when he got to college. Now, when I got to UCLA in '65, there were 145 black students full-time out of 62,000 full-time students. We had 72 full-time black undergrad students and 73 full-time black grad students. I was one of them. So we started working and doing a lot of stuff. Some of it was illegal, but we did it. And you could always count on Big Lou with his 7'2" tall self. He'd be right there with us. He was a heavy brother. He had engineering and got a B+ average in engineering, and every time you saw him, he had a slide rule clipped to his belt. But he was right there. So in 1967, we got in for the 67-68 year, we got in 250 more black students, which drastically ramped up the 72, now it was 81 undergrads by that time. And then for 68, 69 year, we got in another 250. The first 250 were some righteous brothers and sisters. The second 250 were these punks that we're talking about. They appreciated our efforts, but they couldn't get involved.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
You know, stupid. I remember we had a meeting with the law students, minority law students in the faculty. One fool Negro was saying, brothers, we have to understand that Professor Schmidt is quite correct. If they keep grading the minorities easily, our degrees will be compromised. So some Hispanic brothers say, you stupid fool, man, what you mean? How they gonna know who we are if they got a blind grading system? They don't know who we are, man. And he says, that is true. We do have a blind grading system. Professor Smith, how would the faculty know who the minority students are? You know, you didn't put your name on a paper, you put your exam number, and only two people were supposed to have the key as to what number went with what name.
Right.
And because of that, we switched it to a pass-fail system. So they couldn't jack you up by name by giving you a poor grade. So and it turned out the minority students were kicking plenty of butt. They wanted to change the whole admissions program because of that. We had a participation in it. The California Constitution said that the University of California is not just about academics, but is about establishing leadership. They even specifically mentioned the colored citizens of California who had so recently escaped from the horrible institution of slavery. See, this was 1852, 1851. It's written into the Constitution. The Asian, Chinese citizens, the Mexican citizens who needed full leadership in the University of California was to develop community leadership in politics, science, industry, the arts, literature, engineering, and economics. So the mission standard was not just raw grade in academics, but by demonstrated ability to be a leader. So we said we just want the standard admission criteria. We don't want anything special, but the only time you've been applying that alternative, those other things that indicate an ability to succeed, has been for athletes. So we want it for ordinary students. So we got it, and we started participating in making that selection, and we wound up statistically and years later having an exact 1-1 correlation between the ranking we gave somebody and what they wound up doing in the grad school. Well, we had some Negroes over at the medical school who were upset because they got excluded because all they had was the grade point average, but it was no better than some of the white students, so they wanted in just because they were colored.
Right.
Well, we said from the law school, no, if you don't apply that other thing about an ability to succeed in demonstrated leadership, then what's going to happen is they're going to claim reverse discrimination. So what happened at UCLA, at the med school, they set it up with a student named Baki, a white student, with the collaboration of the white faculty, so they would admit black people on the basis of their grade point average and their color rather than the other factors. So what happens is they set up Baki and they managed to establish the point of reverse discrimination thanks to these Negroes. Now, speaking of a Negro, they had some fool on the board of regents who was all against affirmative action. Well, I interviewed that fool who was trying to get in on a minority admissions program, and we turned him down at UCLA, got turned down at Cal State, got turned down at Cal State Long Beach, Cal State LA, USC turned him down because all he was a fool who went out and partied a lot, and he had no demonstrated leadership. So he always was against affirmative action, since he couldn't get advantage of it. And they put him as a colored sellout house Negro on the Board of Regents. So we have too many of those.
Yeah, I used to know his name off the top of my head. I know who you're talking about exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't remember either. Hell, it's not something you would make an effort to remember.
Right, I hear what you say. Definitely.
These negative historical footnotes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I ask you, Judge, before we go on, I appreciate you. All this, you definitely need to write a book about your experiences.
I'm working on it, but I'm talking about principles, not me. I'm boring.
I beg to differ because a lot of folks, I get comments from people saying, well, Judge need to write a book or something. We need to have them write this information. So somebody said, even if they live 200 years, they won't have as much wisdom as you do. It might take them 200 years to get that type of wisdom and insight that you have. And it's very much needed because we are lacking sorely in the black community in terms of leadership, but black alpha male, hetero male leadership. Because I look at Hollywood, I keep on thinking to myself, they giving Lee Daniels and Tyler Perry the red carpet, but there's no really masculine black males in Hollywood, it seems.
Well, let me tell you this. You know that at one point I had the #1 syndicated TV show in America, but they never let you know it.
I didn't know that. No, sir, I didn't know. Wow.
See, I was beating Oprah every single day of the week for weeks at a time the last few years. I was beating Phil every single day of the week all the time the last few years. I was running tied with Judy until they changed the rating system for her so she could clearly soar to #1. They did not want a straight black man as the #1 TV show in America.
Right. But they had that before, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom line is one of the reasons that I'm not with them is because they wanted me to do some things, gave me an ultimatum, and that's one of the reasons my attitude is about somebody made you do it. You don't have to do it. I say, you can take the money and shove it. I'm not going to do that. That's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to pander. You can kiss my behind.
Yeah,
But there are other good black people. But let me tell you what's happened. It didn't end with Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown, Eldridge Cleaver, Huey P. Newton, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King. We've had others. But in the intervening 50 years, they have made a calculated effort to suppress us, and they have promoted the likes of Tyler Perry. They have promoted rap stars. Some of them have good hearts, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
They've promoted Al Sharptons and stuff like that, you see.
Mm-hmm.
But the good guys, they have suppressed us.
Mm.
See, I'm not alone. I just don't give a damn. You know, I never gave a damn because I never had a thing about money. It was always about, I get pissed off about stuff, get angry about it, and say there needs to be some change. And damn it, if I'm not going to go look whatever in the hell it is in the eye and say, screw you, you don't like it, we can both have a contest, see who goes to Valhalla.
Yes, sir. Mm.
You know, so it is what it is. But I just try to pass on what I've got and some of the attitudes so we can get some of these young brothers get told it's all right to be a leader. No, don't think about just money. Get you some, learn how to earn a living, be brave and courageous, and be ready to sacrifice yourself for a point. Because sometimes something opens up and the only person that fills that slot, that can fill that slot, is somebody that's had demonstrated credibility. It may not come to you off the way you want it, off of the shelf up front, but you will find yourself where you can skip a lot of positions because you'll be the only one that can do it because you're the only one that had the balls, insight, drive, and the nerve to go do it and prove you can, and once you tried, you learned.
That sounds wild. That's powerful.
All of these people that I mentioned, I knew personally.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't know Malcolm X, and I didn't know uh, Martin Luther King, but I met his widow and his sons.
Oh, definitely, because you helped share the truth about what happened to Dr. King, though.
Yeah,
You were
I
part of
did.
that.
But yeah, I knew Angela Davis. She was a personal friend of mine. I stopped one of her boyfriends from jumping her one time.
Wow.
You know, we became friends. She's a nice sister. She'd bore you to death. You took a class, you go to sleep in 5 minutes. But she was a very erudite, learned sister.
Yeah.
You know, I knew a whole lot of people. You know, I found out Jimmy Carter was a fan.
Oh,
The
really?
law office I was with, we still represent Al Gore. The law office I was with and represented him before he became a U.S. Senator.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've met several presidents. I've met a lot of people. Met people in Hollywood. I met Marlon Brando, you know, Samuel Jackson. You know, he's a good guy. Morgan Freeman, he's a good guy. Morgan Freeman is a very, very smart man. You know, he does this science thing through the wormhole.
Yeah.
He actually is into that stuff, by the way. He's not just reading lines.
Oh, yeah, also, I know, is he an atheist too? Like, I know he's not into, I guess,
Well, let me put it this way. My attitude toward that stuff is, before I waste much time debating on whether it's true or not, I still have a great deal of undisplaced anger at the purpose, well, not at the purpose, but at the usage, well, at the use they had that religion for. It enslaved us.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it ludicrous for African Americans to have no base religion except that one. See, white people aren't basically Christians. What do they call the first planet from the sun? It's Mercury. Then it's Venus. Then after Earth is Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus. You know, you got Europa and Ganymede, all of the names of these Greek and Roman gods. You've got Thor missiles, Atlas missiles. You've got Norse mythology in there. You've got Marvel comics where you've got Thor and you've got Odin being played by Anthony Hopkins. You've got Loki. They haven't forgotten their religions. We don't know who Damballa, Okotie, and Agumbi are because we don't know, even though those are our chief ancestral gods from West Africa, where 99.9% of African Americans hail from as their African origin point. West Africa. We don't know that. All we have is Christianity. See, we have the 25th we celebrate for Christmas, but Eastern Orthodox Christians celebrate Jesus' birthday in the middle of January. You see, they don't celebrate it the 25th because that never was the one that they started celebrating. They started celebrating Jesus' birthday on the 25th because the so-called pagans wouldn't stop celebrating All Samain, which is Alsamaine, the way you spell it in English. It was an old Celtic holiday that occurred on the 25th of December. Why? Because it was 3 or 4 days after the shortest day of the year, and it was long enough after that so they could affirm with assurance that the days were getting longer and the world was returning to productivity. It's also the birth date for the Egyptian god Osiris. It's also the birthday for the Norse god Odin. The Christmas tree, the Tannenbaum, was part of the Celtic celebration, as is mistletoe. See, so they just co-opted that. Easter, why do you have the Easter bunny and eggs on Easter? Because they put it on that day because the ancients celebrated the day for Isis, the god of fertility, who became Aphrodite and then Venus. And what is a very fecund animal? Rabbits. They breed like rabbits. And what is the symbol of fecundity? Eggs. So they have rabbits and Easter eggs. That's why we have Easter eggs. It's not because of Easter. It's because it was a pagan holiday for fertility. So which of these holidays are you settling? Kwanzaa? I won't celebrate that because that scurvy scoundrel, Ron Karinga, Ron Everett, a.k.a. the Maulana Ron Karinga, who was a police and FBI informant on black people and did a lot to tear down the nascent development of a community sense in Los Angeles in the late 60s. He started it as something to pimp black people with. Started it down in a park off of Crenshaw Boulevard. So I won't celebrate that. Islam is cool with me. They treat everybody all right. The third ranking person in ancient Islam was Bilal. He was the slave chained to a rock in the desert that Muhammad rescued and made him the first crier for Islam. You know, I don't speak Swahili, though I took it. You know why? I found out Swahili was a slave language. It is a pidgin language. It's a combination of Bantu, Dutch, and Arabic that was developed for the slave trade in East Africa that went on into the beginning of the 20th century before it was stopped. So why do I want to learn a slave trade language? But everybody goes and does that. They do Afrocentric stuff because they like to dress up in the colored robes. But what they ought to be celebrating is jungle camouflage that the Mau Mau and other revolutionaries won, getting free from colonialism. They want to go Afrocentric, but they don't know who the gods are. They like being cute, but they don't understand. They put braids in their boys' hair, and in Africa, if you've got braids, that means you are a straight up and down sissy. Men can wear all kinds of hairstyles, dreadlocks, but not braids. You know, the sisters go and get 10 pounds of fake hair put in and glued into their heads, and you look at them and they weigh 300 pounds and they look like some kind of bear waddling down in a way, and think they look fine and got inch-long fingernails that they spent $300 or $400 working on with rhinestones in there, and it looks like, good gracious, you ought to have spent that money on getting yourself a gym membership.
Yeah, it makes some great interest in our observations.
I was in some place and they had 4 or 5 big old sisters sitting at this table, and one particularly big one, and I was fascinated looking at her because she was overlapping her chair so much. And she kept slipping one load to one side and the other, and she actually fell off the chair onto the ground.
Wow.
Well, her homegirls just didn't miss a forkful, didn't even look over. She's yelling for help. 2 white men jumped up to try and pick her up. I almost choked on what I was eating, trying not to laugh.
Wow.
And 2 waiters, 4 men had to help this woman back up and get in her chair. She didn't hurt herself, but her friends didn't miss a forkful.
They even asked how she was doing, huh?
Didn't even ask how she was doing.
Wow.
And they got 8 or 9 little kids under 7 years old running around the restaurant, messing with everybody and totally out of control with no home training.
Was it the Olive Garden or was it a different restaurant?
No, this wasn't the Olive Garden. This was down here at Rafferty's on Poplar.
Oh, yeah, Rafferty's on Poplar. Okay. You know what? But you know, you go to these schools now, it's ridiculous. Like, it's so bad
if you
now.
If you really want to see something, you go down and watch what happens at Chow Time over on Hacks Cross. I go in there and sit and just watch the people.
I ain't been in Chow Town in so many years. Well, tell me about that experience.
Oh, man, it's like These kids run all over the place. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
tells them to walk. They
Mm-hmm.
go up and they make a mess at the ice cream machine, and no mama. Mama's running off at the mouth of somebody at the table while the kid's going over there. Somebody needs to slap the kid's fingers off from trying to reach up and pick something up with their hands instead of using the utensils. You know, the kids are loud and unruly. No home training. And you get 10, 12, 15-pound hairdos and gaudy clothing. There was one woman sitting with a purple top, some of the biggest jeans I've ever seen, and not just bright red dyed hair, but something that looked like literally that red mop that Bozo the Clown or Ronald McDonald would wear.
Okay.
And she was sitting next to somebody that had on an iridescent shirt that looked like a circus tent with sharks swimming around on it. No, that was another occasion. This one was one of those shirts of many colors.
Mm-hmm.
And another woman that was so big she'd split her tights. And why in the world big women want to wear tights, I do not know. That does not look good.
It's fascinating. Wow. I ain't been in Chinatown almost 10 years, I think. I don't live that far away from Chinatown, but like, it's just something about it is interesting. But it stays full.
Yeah, they stay full. And it's like, I saw one woman go back 9 times.
Someone to the buffet.
Yeah. 2 plates at a time.
Yeah, maybe I gotta go, but is the food that
good?
good?
Health. It's bad for your health. But you see, these feminists are driving a thing to talk about that's called body shaming. I don't care. You know, they may be beautiful people inside, but, you know, you're not going to live long. Work on it. So you got these babies, they'll be putting you in the ground real quickly.
Yes, somebody, you know what I'm saying? Like,
the feminists say that's beautiful, and you're body shaming if you say it's not. Well, who says? And then some of the sisters that think they're Afrocentric, I'm beautiful because I'm a black woman. Well, you may be, but the physical beauty, let's just put it this way. Even if you were in a village, you certainly wouldn't be classified as a beautiful woman in the village, because every woman in the village for the tribesman is not considered beautiful. And if you look at who the pretty women are from the village, they tend to have the same kind of common look, that they may have a darker complexion, but the look's kind of similar to what we call pretty women over here. And if you look at a statue from the Nok civilization on the Juice Plateau in Nigeria from 2,000 years ago, it looks like the sculpture they have. If you look at what the Greeks and the Romans did, it looks like that. Look at the wall paintings and extrapolate from the Egyptians, it looks like that. It looks like what you get in China, India, anywhere in the world. There's a standard of beauty, you know, and if you don't look like it, you don't look like it. Everybody doesn't look like a pro football player or a professional athlete, male. So you just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was thinking about, like, how you said, like, the military has a hard time finding men or boys or guys, young men. Tough, but I remember I was going through my Facebook timeline last week, or news feed, whatever, you know, you see people posting things, and this sister said that she asked people to pray for her friend whose child at 9 years old committed suicide because of online bullying. I said, 9 years old commit suicide over cyberbullying?
I mean, she never taught him how to be a man.
I was like, wow.
And you know, I know what's one of the main things you have to deal with to become a man: learning how to handle a bully.
Yeah.
Now they protect you. Call the police. Online bullying. How the hell do you get bullied online? I don't get it.
just you just turn it off.
That's an excuse for a deeper problem.
You know what? It was a porn star in California. She's 23 years old from Canada. She committed suicide after people bullied her about not wanting to work with guys who did gay porn. Like, she was well known in the industry, award winning, but she had a concern about, she turned down a job because she did not want to work with a guy who just got through doing a gay porn.
Well,
and people online bully her.
Well, look, she apparently had more fortitude than half these actresses that say they had sex with a fat, out of shape old guy because
right.
they had to want this part. I don't blame her. What do they have? That's a little strange, you know.
Yeah, but she killed herself. I said, why she was? I mean, like, wow. I was like,
I'm sure there were other kind of problems going on besides that.
I think I agree with her point too. I respected her point of view on that. She said for her, it's like she got to protect herself.
Yeah. And see, that's that feminist LGBTQ thing driving that engine of what's wrong with somebody who does gay porn. Well, nothing if they do gay porn, but you don't have to be part of it.
Right. I mean, it's past that. I remember, I ain't gonna never forget Kerry Washington. She won a GLAAD award. You know, the lady who plays on Scandal TV show. And she basically got up there and just threw black folks under the bus. I mean, I just never seen. I said, we the only group of people that people can do that to. You can't do that to Jewish people. They call you anti-Semitic. You can't do that to the LGBTQ community. Yeah, they'll you be blackballed. But I'm saying she just threw black folks. I mean, just wow. I mean, you just went all in for that.
Yeah, that's okay. And you know what's funny? In California, if you call somebody FAG, that's hate crime. You can go to jail. If you call somebody the NIG word, that's no big deal.
That's insane, man. You know, you put people in jail for that.
You know what it is? It's a lesson for black people. See, the LGBTQ and the feminists got control of the political process and the media, so they push their points. I don't hate them for it. It's their business. They have every right in the world to do what they do. But we have every right in the world to push back, to push our point, especially when it gets neglected and suppressed.
But you know, our problem is the black media is a joke right now overall. I mean, it's more about celebrity journalism, and you got black comedians being the leaders in the newsroom.
Yeah.
I mean, the radio shows, the morning shows, a bunch of black comedians. I mean, Dick Gregory was, you know, but what I'm saying, I think it's kind of weird that we don't really have no real black news, like a race beat back in the day. Now, you know, John H. Johnson, Daisy Bates. We don't have people like that anymore. Oh, Gil Noble from New York City. He did a phenomenal job as an investigative reporter. We don't have a Gil Noble.
We don't have Brian Gumbel.
Yeah, Brian Gumbel he did a decent job back in this time.
I said, but we don't have a Brian Gumbel. We don't have an Ed Bradley.
Yeah, I remember Ed Bradley, yes. Or Louis Lomax.
For that matter, let's go to the white side. We don't have a Walter Cronkite either.
No, we don't.
Hell is Anderson Cooper.
It's just we in trouble, man. I just you're right. It's bread and circuses, Judge Brown. People don't care though. People just like they just want to. I mean, nothing wrong with movies and sports, but people just want to get lost in all of that. They don't want to deal with. Let me ask you about the Bitcoin thing. What's your take on Bitcoin?
Bitcoin?
Yeah.
I think it's probably like silver. It was very, very big. A lot of people jumped into it, and then it went bust.
But you think it's by design, though, because they don't want a threat to currency?
See, once they got rid of long-term capital gains and the tax structure that used to go with it 45, 50 years ago, there was no point in holding on to long-term things that you had to hold at least 6 months before you got rid of them without an outrageous tax penalty. Now that there is no penalty for getting rid of stuff immediately, there is a tendency in the stock exchanges to look for volatility. In other words, with careful mathematical precision, you can generate a great increase in the value of certain commodities, stocks, bonds, or objects like Bitcoin. Buy in when the price is going up and predict when it's about to drop and sell and get the hell out so you make a big profit. See, Wall Street and the stock exchanges have become gambling casinos as a result of that, because they no longer encourage buying stable stock in entities that have a long-term viability. You buy stock like that so you can use it to leverage acquisitions of stock that's got volatility. In other words, it goes up and down quickly. It can be manipulated by what are legal means, just legal, and you can make money off of it. Buy it cheap, buy, drive the price up, and then sell before it gets to the top and starts dropping.
Yeah.
A different thing look for. In the day when the CEO of General Motors made 4.5 times what the highest paid line worker did, you sought stability and long-term viability in stock. Now, when the price paid for incompetent management that leads to economic disaster and people losing their jobs, well, volatility is encouraged on the stock exchanges, so you buy with mathematical algorithms. When your computer says buy, you sell and you trade when you hit send or implement, and all many millions of trades and set-offs can occur within seconds, and there's no penalty for doing that tax-wise. So it does not tend to build the economy. It tends to make money, and Wall Street is a gambling casino. Obama got Wall Street back up doing fine, but the rest of America got left behind. 8 wasted years. I ask people, we had a African-American president, but one that didn't have a black culture, who wound up marrying his supervisor, which, you know, in today's world, that's naughty, naughty, naughty. Why is she fooling around with somebody she supervises? But it is what it is, and she lost a lot of weight because she was kind of on the heavy side, so people said she looked good, and we got 8 years of show and 8 years of nothing to go. Can you think anything he left us? Obamacare was drafted by Republican U.S. Senator Dr. Bill Frist from Tennessee, whose family founded Blue Cross, not the Obama administration. Oh, yes, the economic bailout bill, $781 billion, which right now holds the record for the largest single expenditure in the history of the United States of America. Yeah, he's got a lot of stuff from him, but what did everybody else get? Job programs? No. Educational programs? No. Meaningful reform of the criminal justice system on the federal level? No. Tax reform? No. Black generals and admirals appointed by the commander-in-chief? No. What did we get?
Oh, man. That's
Chick flick matinee star.
The chick flick matinee star.
Now we got a boogeyman, but I think Trump is good for the country because he has energized all of those bad elements in the country who feel comfy coming out now. They've been emboldened. If we'd gotten the Hillary witch, we would not have heard that.
You said Hillary witch?
Yeah, the sailboat. She only goes where the wind blows her. I remember when she was running around in the 12th grade being a high school Republican campaigning for that serious racist Barry Goldwater who started playing the race card, seriously playing it. And then she became chairman or chairwoman of the Young Republicans at Wesley, an all-girls school she attended. And she campaigned for Richard Tricky Dick Nixon in 1968. She came out to California to campaign for St. Ron de Reagan. And she and her parents were hollering about keep the Chicago suburbs and the student housing at the University of Illinois segregated, while Bernie Sanders was chairman of a core chapter and going to jail for integration. He came out to the Watch Festival in L.A., I think it was the second one, and the only white person out in the field of about 20,000 black folk was Bernie Sanders, and he was having a good time. The only other white people were the police and the news media. So we sent some people from UCLA out to Chicago from the BSU to back him up doing what he was doing, while Hillary was coming back from college to try and keep what we were working for from happening. I haven't forgotten that. It's outright racism. And her daddy worked for Goldman Sachs, and the released emails showed that she didn't get just $13 million for speaking engagements. As she disclosed, it was $26 million. When Bernie said, we want to see the transcript, what he was really talking about was there were no transcripts because she didn't say anything. She just showed up and said, hi, thank you, and thanks for the $220,000 check.
Wow. That's
So how did she get worth, she and Bill get worth $56 million when all he had ever been is a civil servant, and she had never gotten more than $200,000 in her life net? And from being a civil service employee to wit U.S. Secretary of State, before that U.S. Senator, she's worth, what, $28 million in 14, 15 months? It's nothing but a bought-off crook. And they love her. The feminists didn't care that she was a scoundrel. They just wanted a woman for president at all costs. I don't buy that. We need jobs, education. We need reorientation and re-education of the people who are displaced by science and industry from traditional jobs. There's nothing in place. We need a health care thing because Obamacare is the pits, but the Republicans weren't going to repeal it because they got back there and found out the truth of the matter was it was a Republican bill in the first place. That's why they didn't repeal it. Wow. They ignorantly talked mess, smack, and then found out that the biggest contributors were behind Obamacare. We really should call it Dr. Bill Frisk Care.
Frisk Care.
Or Blue Cross caressment. You know, we caress Blue Cross and Blue Shield with that. They're the main beneficiaries to that thing.
Well, actually, this before we go, I mean, I appreciate.
Let me say this:
I
don't depend on it, but I'm fully vested for my pension from the state of Tennessee from being elected to 2 8-year terms as a state judge. My pension is $1,860-some a month. My copay for medication is $1,830 a month.
Wow.
Now, just think what somebody would have to do if they needed to make a choice between medication, rent, and food. Now, that's how ridiculous the system is at the moment. And then I will say this. There is a character in right now. He represents Part 9 for the Board of Education in Shelby County. and he's campaigning on the issue that teachers hired starting in 2018 will have no retirement benefits as part of their compensation package. So now teachers don't have to have 4-year degrees, just 2-year associate degrees. And the county has turned over the process of recruitment of teachers to a private entity known as Teach America, a private for-profit entity. They select the students. They quasi-educate the students. They train the students, and they pick the teachers. They hire the teachers for the board, and they assign the teachers. Now, that's ridiculous to have turned that over to private enterprise. And they, frankly, are trying to kill off the school system, public schools, in favor of charter school, where they can teach some religious dogma instead of the neutral thing that has been taught by public education that's made black people and everybody in America on top of the world for the last 100 years. So public education is to be destroyed so we can have what I call crank education, where you can take a niche and teach your kids this sort of kind of thing over here, home training, schooling, and they never get to learn how to deal with other people. And it's very bad. So you've got a situation here where roughly 75% of the student body of the county schools have 2 people that represent them, or 1.5. And 25% of the student body has 6 people representing them. It's not really equitable. And somebody needs to hold Memphis City Council to account for surrendering the charter to the City Board of Education. That's one of the most dumb and stupid, ignorant, selfish, and short-sighted things I've seen, and I think too many of them that went for it were getting side compensation for doing it.
Yeah, it's a great mistake. It was a mistake.
An embarrassment. Got the opportunity to do something, and you give it away. This whole city is jacked up. The representation for the last 45 years has been giving the taxpayers' money away to vested upper echelon interest. There has been nothing delivered from Congress, the state level, the city or the county level for either the white or the black middle class. There's some poverty frou-frou, and the rest of it goes to the privileged caste who gets all of the building contracts to build public works that have no purpose and simply eat up tax dollars and do nothing to provide a more profitable existence for the rest of the people. It's a shame.
Yes, sir. Definitely is a shame, but I'm glad that you
We've got cowards and scoundrels representing us, and we are throwing away our chance to have gotten someplace. And the dynamic is changing drastically since in 3 generations or so, 3 decades or so, not generations, America is no longer going to be a majority white country. And we need to start setting up long-term coalitions with other groups that right now are minorities so we can run this country for fun and profit, equity, and in the spirit of justice for all and equal benefit for all. But we're missing our opportunity because we have no national leadership. Though I will make an exception for Kaepernick, the football player, who at least got a movement going that seems to have generated some national controversy and support and opposition, which is a good thing.
What do you think about I know Kaepernick, he said he was in agreement, Puff Daddy or P. Diddy, whatever he calls himself these days, he wants to buy the Carolina Panthers And, people say that, like, there'll be a great idea. Some people think it's a bad idea. They don't know, because one of the things he want to do is, make Colin Kaepernick the quarterback when you already got Cam Newton, who one of the best quarterbacks in the league, already the quarterback at the Carolina Panthers. But also, he don't have the money, like he don't have that type of money to buy the team outright as a majority owner. But what is your take on that?
Have to be a package put together. But
Yeah.
then again, donne circensi e pane. Donne pane e circensi. Give them bread and circuses. That's more circus.
Mm-hmm.
It's irrelevant, totally irrelevant in the big scheme. It keeps us focusing on football statistics, and we still don't know the Constitution, which, by the way, depending upon the size of the pamphlet, is about 10 to 15 pages long. It's not long, but people should read it.
I definitely agree with you on that. But it's like this is the same country. I mean, people know who Thomas Paine was. I mean, there's no statues or anything named after him in this country. So it's fascinating, man, what they could hide out in plain sight, versus people's lack of intellectual curiosity about things. But but that's the way.
Hide in plain sight. See, this whole thing with this feminist movement about ruin these men on mere accusations. See, that sets up in the popular mind a culture of accusations are sufficient. For a long time, that was a very dangerous thing, and slave owners or otherwise, the people who founded the country and promulgated that Constitution knew what they were doing when they put that Bill of Rights in there, because that was necessary. There was too much of this accusation and condemnation with no proof. And the ability to do that allows people to deal with demagogic control of the political process and thereby the economic and social process. It's a dangerous thing. You drive your country down the road to absolute tyranny when you do that, because somebody can come in when the public is accustomed to that nonsense and use it for foul purposes. In the 19th century, European visitors marveled that the number one entertainment for Americans was not the opera, it was not the ballet, it was not the plays, it was not symphony. It was not horse racing. What it was is to visit courtrooms and watch trials. People found it dramatic, entertaining, good stories, and they learned about their laws and how their laws work. That's no longer the case, though it does tell us why the court TV shows that I was a part of preempted and destroyed the soap operas, which, by the way, the lingering effects of those poisonous soap operas and the trash they perpetrated are still with us. That's why we have the Housewives and the Tyler Perry Boo stuff with Medea that glorifies dysfunction and filthy, obscene behavior. And by obscene, I mean just wrongdoing, filthy, low-down behavior. Susan can't marry Bill because Bill may actually be her first cousin because her father slept with so-and-so, but her mother did not know, and so-and-so's mother, blah, 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 was trying to get back at so-and-so's aunt. This kind of filth. And for the women of America who produced this generation of radical feminists to be involved with that, well, it's not unusual to expect the likes of Attorney Bloom, Attorney Aldrich, one is the daughter and the other one's the mother, to be generating all of these accusations against men who are doing something. The hashtag Me Too ought to be a hashtag Wait for Justice. See, they are destroying the concept and they don't even realize it. And what they're fundamentally trying to depend on is justice, but they're destroying the process, though it's insidious and not obvious. I abhor any ill treatment of women, but I abhor worse when you take the fundamental principles of governance and you corrupt them.
Mm-hmm.
That includes whether you're hollering about blacks being done wrong, white power, it's just us, not justice. It's not that the rules are wrong, it's that we don't have the right players in the game. Too many of our leadership are nothing but abject, money-grabbing, selfish cowards. And the ones that had it, we've allowed to be suppressed. I don't necessarily put myself in that category because I depreciate what I do. I'm just an ordinary person who's crazy enough to speak his mind.
Okay. You say so.
Anyway, brother, it's late. We've been chatting. You'll get a long We All Be. This is almost 3 hours worth.
Yeah, I chop it up. But before I go, I want to ask you your take on the Omarosa thing. How you think about it? What's your view on it?
What now? I didn't hear you.
Omarosa, the White House person from reality TV land, Trump's apprentice, who lost her job, I guess, this week under questionable circumstances.
Did she lose it or did she resign?
She's supposed to resign, but the way it came out.
You know how that goes. The press can give you fake news and say she had to go because it was retaliation for trying to bring charges of misconduct against Trump, or it could simply be somebody offered her more money, and considering the character she portrayed in the Trump executive reality thing, it's consistent with I need the money.
I know we know it was a black news reporter named April Ryan. She alleged that she was drugged off the premises. So she was arguing the fact that her husband was denied access to the Christmas party by the chief of staff, General Kelly, who revoked her privilege.
He got thrown out. You know, I don't blame him. Would you like if somebody you consider an enemy throws up to your party? You say, no, I didn't invite you. I mean, it may be for a reason that you don't like, but hell, I don't have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, too, have you seen this stuff going around about his black girlfriend he dated for 2 years?
Yeah. You should, for Donald Trump, New York Times article, yes.
Yeah, she just, it isn't that he's black or white. It's just he's a white guy who's rich, and he just hangs around with people who are super successful people, white or black.
Yeah,
and he doesn't
sense.
have many friends, if any at all.
I can believe that.
And by the way, did you check that part of the article out about he endorsed and financed Jesse Jackson's 2 runs for president?
They gave him even free rent space, the Rainbow Coalition, or push.
Yeah. I mean, hey, did Hillary do that? Did Bill do that? Did the Democratic Party do that?
No, they wanted to get rid of Jesse.
Yeah, I think that Trump has a game, and for him to run the game, he needs the support of the rednecks. So he's got support of the rednecks. And we had a choice between a witch sailboat who only went where the wind blew her tacky behind, and was a positive racist, outright racist in her day. And there's a photo that's a true photo, because I remember when it came out, she and Bill, when she met him, when she first got to Yale Law School in our first year, they went to a costume party for Halloween. He came as a coverall wearing country boy with a straw hat and red polka dot pattern bandana, and she came dressed in blackface. And that's a real picture, but that shows you her attitude. She's a little younger than I am, and I can tell you I haven't changed fundamentally since I've been 18, 19, 20. and she has neither. So look at what somebody did when they were in their young, foolish, formative years, and then extrapolate that to when they get grown and mature. So she was a racist when she was a teenager in high school and an undergrad in college. She's a racist now. And she just uses us disgustingly. And then I'm looking at that thing with Moore v. Jones in Alabama. Okay, Moore was a creep. He didn't understand the relationship between separation of church and state, and his job as a sworn official, sworn to uphold the Constitution. And Jones, everybody's happy about the black support. 94% of the black men, 97% of the black women, they went for Jones, but Jones made his name locking up an awful lot of black men in penitentiaries. He hasn't been a friend. But they're all happy. It ought to be, man, ain't that, you ought to be sad, man, ain't that awful we had that bad choice?
Basically. Wow.
And the other thing, frankly, if Jones had won, not Jones, if Moore had won, I was more impressed by the point that that would have defeated this little growing trend of guilty by mere accusation. That's the thing out of that election that troubled me.
He almost won, though. He almost.
Yeah, almost won, but nobody bothered about would this stand up in a court of law. And see, the other thing, too, I know he admitted to this, but the bottom line is the age of consent in this southern state, Alabama, I don't think was but 14 at the time. I mean, it's sick, but there it is. Tennessee, up until about 6 years ago, had a thing about incest. You could not marry a first cousin. You could not marry a former in-law.
You got a governor from Alabama who married his first cousin.
Yeah, but I'm saying the Tea Party repealed that law. So there is no law on incest on the books. Too many of them came from backwoods East Tennessee where you wanted a date, you went to a family reunion. And they win because the local Shelby County Juvenile Court, who has a number of personnel involved in it who ought to be in a federal penitentiary, has been using taxpayers' fund in the sequestered non-interest-bearing account to leverage election activity. Which, by the way, I keep reminding everybody, the Justice Department called that the most racist, biased, bigoted, and prejudiced operation they had ever investigated. And our little Strickland city mayor and our juvenile court judge are running around trying to get that 5-year edict dissolved so they won't be accountable to anybody. And the last quarterly report the feds released showed they were worse than before they got put under the edict.
Wow.
No change. Same old, same old. Forget your rights. And let's just ruin all of these colored families for profitability, since everything's been privatized down there and it's for profit. And somebody lied outright when he got confronted with it. I know because some of my neighbors ran the same problem. Took the white kids to Germantown City Court and the black one all the way down to juvenile court for the same bust for simple possession of marijuana. White kids went to court with the parents, got dismissed on court costs. That's the end of it. They were juveniles, a record sealed, but down there, juvenile court, parents went through thousands of dollars in fees, and the stuff drug on. I don't even know if it's finished 2 years later.
Wow. Judge broke ground.
They got one good referee down there, Kerry Woods. He's okay.
Okay.
They got a popping fresh Negro down there who's married to a white woman. He's a house Negro. And he's good and controlled. And the rest of them are nothing but scoundrels.
Wow.
Corrupt scoundrels who haven't had to work very hard with their law degrees because they've got that little largest going on down there at juvenile court, the sinecure, where they can be part of that mess. See, I went and put myself in a position to take a medical disability and don't practice law anymore, so they can't touch me. If I still had an active license, somebody could call me into court for saying what I did. They may still try to do that. But, you got to do right and speak your mind.
Yes, sir. Well, Judge, I want to thank you once again for spending so much time with us to tell us all this very important information as well as your fascinating viewpoint on the world. People really, what you say could be very polarizing for some people, but it is what it is. I mean, you speaking from an authentic place, and I think people need to hear what you got to say because there's not too many people out there speaking from an authentic place.
And see, here's the thing. I know what I say is often unpopular, but you have to remember, I've been looking at this stuff, this world, for 50-some years after I was grown. So I've seen these trends and where they go. And, I'm still breathing in fairly good health now. So I'm just trying to say, be careful what you do. I've heard this before, but nobody wants to study history, even recent history. So, you only go back to when you were, 10, 12 years old, but that's only 25 years ago. I'm talking about let's go back another 25 years that I've been active in there, and let's go back 10 years before that till we get into I was old enough and paying enough attention to realize what was going on. You see what I'm saying? So somebody's got 60 years of being aware of what's going on. I'm older than that, but I've got 60 years where I was paying attention, where, I read the newspapers and I was assessing Eisenhower's policy. Or when what happens when Kennedy and Nixon were running the first time. So I've seen a lot of this stuff. It's been a thing of interest. So I just say, look, it sounds good, but it's really not because there's some downside. You talk about how this works, but the people that got this tried on them, they haven't grown up and started to run the world. And what I see is not a good picture. We're slipping from our position of preeminence. See, the country was preeminent in the world. It had a problem with race. The fact that they've got the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments and needed them is a disgrace. The fact that it's got that 3/5 of a person for determining representation for the southern states on the initial founding of the country is a disgrace. But it is what it is in terms of its system. It's like a ball game. The rules of the game make for an exciting play and entertainment if you've got good players. See, sometimes we think about a new program or a new system will make everything all right. It won't. It's still got a lot to do with the players. And the program is only good if it facilitates good people doing good things. If the program hinders good people from doing good things, it's not a good program. If the program is such that it facilitates bad people doing bad things, it's not good either. But we forget that. And we are all deep off into this. We need a new constitution. We need new law. There's never been a better one that's come up in the history of man, actually. It's the best they've got so far. It's just we have players who don't really deal with it. half of the stupid nonsense you hear comes from people who the bar associations estimate that only 25% of the lawyers and judges in America have actually read the Constitution.
Wow, really? Wow.
They've studied parts of it in law school, but even now the trend for the younger lawyers is when you study constitutional law, it's slanted toward commercial circumstances, you know, in terms of application of laws to a contract and shipments in transit and all of that, rather than what we had when I went to law school, where it was slanted toward individual rights, which is an entirely different thing. Anyway, brother, it's getting late. I think, what is it, 3 o'clock in the morning or something?
Yeah, it's close by be 3 o'clock. But thank you, Judge Joe Brown, so much in the words of the great Duke Ellington. We love you madly. Keep on producing and pushing as always.
Okay. Good night, young brother. Good morning.
Good morning, yes, sir.
Okay, take it easy.
You too. Thank you.